Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to MACFEST 2023, wherever you're joining us from. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak to all of you who are fasting today. My name is Katarzyna. I am a member of the MACFEST team, and I'm joining you from France. Please tell us in the chat where you're joining us from. Today we have Khaleel Muhammad, an author of several children's books and an internationally renowned Nasheed artist. And our host for today is Amina Shaw, a TV presenter on Salam Britain and a co-host on Sister to Sister podcasts and a founder of NHD London. So please share your comments. If you have any questions, put them in the chat for us and share your thoughts. On behalf of MACFEST, I'd like to thank you for all your donations because they help us very much to put together all these wonderful events for you guys. Most of them are free, so please take a look on Eventbrite. We have more coming up. Please join us in the future. And please follow MACFEST on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. And when you are on social media, use our hashtag spread honey, not hate. Over to you, Amina.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sound check there, alhamdulillah. Ramadan Kareem to all of the viewers who are chiming in right now. And I'm really happy to be here, actually. It's a little bit of a last minute change, but alhamdulillah, we go with the flow as always. We expect this session to be quite packed today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our special guest, who is Khaleel Muhammad, none other than Khaleel Muhammad, who is the internationally renowned Nasheed artist who has performed globally and released 3 albums. Khaleel's also the author of the children's book Muslim All-Stars, and he's appeared on several TV shows, adverts, and also been in the Disney film Cinderella. So he's worked with Yusuf Islam as the backing vocalist and graphic designer. He's appeared on television and he's presented Khaleel's Make and Do art show, the Muslim Kids show, and is currently the creator of IqraTV, Iqra Kids TV, should I say, which is part of IqraTV. That is for his Iman channel. He's hosted loads of kids game shows, specifically Brain Ache, and he is the radio presenter for the double award-winning Kids Round show on Inspire 105.1 FM. Khaleel designed and illustrated his self-published books, which are the MuslimFamily Colouring Book, the Muslim All-Stars, Monster Mayhem, Dean Street Kids, and most recently, Rahima and the Robot. So that was quite a lot of information there, mashallah. Welcome, Khaleel.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem to everybody out there listening and watching so far. Thank you so much for joining us. Alhamdulillah, it's great to have you all on board.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. I can see the energy is there. So we're going to kick straight off with your show reel, if that's fine.
That's fine.
We've got a video show reel here of all of your accomplishments. So let's get into that.
Guys, welcome once again. We are in Luton today to see a fantastic calligraphy artist. Goes by the name of Abu Yahya. He did this hat for me. How cool is that? Let's go see some of his amazing artwork. Come on. Assalamu alaikum, guys. This is me, Khaleel Muhammad, here to let you know that this Ramadan, the Muslim Kids Show is gonna go into orbit. friends. Welcome once again to another live edition of the Muslim Kid Show with me, your host and your brother, your uncle, Khaleel Muhammad. How are you guys out there? Hope everybody is well. I hope you guys are looking forward to going back to school. Oh, it's going to be exciting. I bet you've missed all your friends and the teachers. No, what? I'm sure you have. Some people say that the bite from a bullet ant is as painful as being shot with a bullet. I guess they call it bullet ant for a reason, right? Have you ever heard of zombies? Well, did you know that zombies actually exist in the ant world? Which of course means that the arms are always spiraling around. If you've ever seen those photos or film of the Milky Way going around and around, that's what I'm talking about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, the heavens was created with might, and indeed we are its expander.
MashaAllah, that was your delight to look at. You were professional, the music came in just right, you were on point, you were on key, you were moving around, you had eye contact, you were smiling, you did everything I think a person on stage should do, and you did it well, mashallah. Well done, congratulations.
And tip number 5, add your details slowly. I know it's tempting to try and draw the most interesting parts of the picture straight away, but don't do that. Try to have a bit of discipline and build up your picture very, very slowly.
SubhanAllah, that was amazing to see. SubhanAllah, you've done so much, and to fit it all in that little short show reel, I'm sure that was hard to put together. A show reel where you could just take bits and pieces and just put it all together and still, get a good broad perspective of everything that you've done and achieved. MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I think doing the show reel is nearly as difficult as actually doing the events itself, because you have to pick and choose what you want people to see, and then you're trying to give a good image of yourself and your work and stuff. So it can be a very, very trying sometimes. But alhamdulillah, it's part of what we do. It's part of what we do as we're in the television, or if we're in media, we're content creators. What we try to do is try and pick that which is good and is beneficial, inshallah, and people can be inspired by or use to think deeper or to grow somehow. And that's what we try to do, inshallah.
Definitely. And I can definitely relate to that, because as a content creator myself, I know the difficulties, but you know what? I want to chime into some of this creativity that we're talking about right now. So I want to start with talking about your children's books. MashaAllah. So you're an author, which is just one of your many titles. Let's talk about these books. So children's books is a very niche kind of area in terms of being an author. I want to know what inspired you to write children's books, and what do you actually hope your readers will take away from your books?
For me, even now, I'd say 90%, 99, yeah, maybe 99% of what I do is always aimed towards kids. The nasheeds, obviously the books, the art, everything I do is geared towards kids. But how I got into it is that back in 1997, I know it sounds like an archaic time when the dinosaurs are roaming around, but it's not, right? Back in 97, just soon, a couple of years after I became Muslim, I was in a bookshop, and I noticed that the bookshops, while they make some efforts to create content for kids, I felt that there was a certain amount of there's a certain genre lacking. There was a certain amount of excitement lacking. And I felt that some of the high octane, some of the interesting stories that we see from superhero films, or even just good old fashioned action films, some of that was missing. So I thought, you know what, why haven't we got anything exciting like that? Yeah, we've got books saying Bismillah before you eat and how to go to the toilet and stuff like that. But there's no stories of just regular kids getting into adventure. So I created something along with my nephew. We created a story called The Adventures of Hakim. Now, this is back in 97 when I was as broke as a joke, and I actually recorded this audio adventure on one of those early learning cassettes. Do you remember the ELC early learning cassettes? I had to record it on that because I couldn't afford to get a cassette. And I recorded the little story on there, and I played it to my brother and his wife, and they said, oh, it's good, Khaleel. Why did you send it to Yusuf Islam? I was like, sell it to Yusuf Islam. Serious. You think Yusuf Islam is going to be interested in my story? And at that time, he had just come up with The Life of the Last Prophet, the book and the audio cassette. Tells us something about the age as well. And eventually I said, okay, and I sent it to him, and they said, Khaleel, this is unique, this is what we want, this is what we're looking for, come in and record it professionally. So from the get-go, my entry into Islamic media has been towards kids. So I was naturally predisposed to go towards kids when I did the nasheeds, and then when I did the books came way later. The nasheeds then came up, we'll talk about the nasheeds later on, but I came to the nasheeds, then doing the art, and then doing the radio. I do a radio show aimed towards children. My TV shows are aimed towards children. So doing the book was just, it was a natural flow into doing it for kids. With the same kind of premise in mind, that we wanted to create something which is adventurous, which is just regular kids. They don't have powers, they don't have capes, they don't crawl up walls, they don't have hammers, they don't fly around. Normal kids with normal issues, dealing with extraordinary situations, not out of the world situations. Just deal with how to help neighbors and stuff, but there's always going to be a bit of adventure behind it as well. So the Adventures of Hakim has got like a bit of kung fu, it's got buses falling into the Thames, it's got car chases, it's got a bit of fighting, it's got a bit of drug dealing, I've got stuff like that as well. So I'm aiming at the kind of the tweens. I'm not aiming at the 4 to 8. I'm aiming at the 8 to 15. And if you look at the books that I do, the Adventures of Hakim, the Rahim and the Robot, Muslim All Stars, you'll see that they're a bit more edgy.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to do, right? So I wanted to talk about the individual books, because we've got 4, right? So we've got the colouring book, then you've got Muslim All Stars, then you've got the Dean, is it the Dean School?
Dean Street Kids, yeah.
Dean Street Kids, right? So, and then you've got the last one, which is Rahima and
the Robot.
Okay. So these are 4 completely different books, right? But I mean, you kind of outlined the need that you said you recognize the need for some more adventure, some more fun, something that kids could really kind of like get that escapism with. Because 1997 for me, I wasn't Muslim yet. I became Muslim in 2012. So 1997, I was in college actually. So I wasn't even reading books. I was doing a whole lot of other stuff, which we're not going to talk about.
Oh, okay, we won't go into that.
You know,
just go around it.
But yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff. I kind of bit creative as well as just like you, dancing, you know, doing things like this. But you know, became a Muslim, put a lot of that stuff down, and you know, started to do other things, you know, presenting, whatever, not getting into my own stuff. But for you, so these books, you kind of spoke about the fun element and the need for this kind of, you know, adventure. I want to hear a little bit more about each one of these books and their specific themes. So tell us about those.
Well, the Muslim this is actually the 2nd edition. I'll show you the 1st edition that was printed via Islamic Foundation in Leicester. I don't know if you can see that. That's the 1st one. Wow. This thing is just killing it.
Background's kind of, yeah.
That's the 1st one, but then the 2nd one I decided to self-publish it myself, and it's a lot bigger. The first story, again, as I said, for the first story, the Muslim All Stars, it was meant to be, I first pitched the Adventures of Hakim to them, but they felt it was too much adventures, too much action, too much fighting, talking about street kids. They felt it was a little bit too high octane for them. So they said, why don't you pitch a more watered down everyday version? I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to. But a friend of mine said, look, Khaleel, have a go, see if you can do a different version, Muslim kids, but without the fighting and the car chases and stuff. And I came up with Muslim All Stars, 5 different kids, 5 disparate children who happen to come together and happen to help out a neighbor who needs some help. There you go. Who helps out a neighbor, helping the Polonskis. Just basically tidy their bedroom, tidy the house, because they've got all these pets running around. The owner's wife is in hospital, and he wants to get the house tidy for them. So that was the first story. So I thought that was quite successful. The second one, as you can see, is bigger, bolder, and more exciting. This is dealing with a bit more contemporary issues. It's dealing with racism, it's dealing with Islamophobia, it's dealing with kind of anti-religious hate, where these individuals on the cover here, they're young kids wearing masks, and they go to different places of worship, gurdwaras, temples, churches, mosques, and they destroy them. supposedly because they say religion is a mind killer and things of this nature. But there's a deeper plot behind it. These kids themselves are being radicalized, and it's down to the Muslim All-Stars to figure out why are these kids doing what they're doing and who is behind them, who is radicalizing them. So you can see it touches on a few contemporary issues. I said racism, Islamophobia, and general religious kind of hatred as well. So that's what I really wanted to talk about, those kids in that normal everyday setting, but having to interact with different communities, having to pool their resources and to kind of come together to stop these monsters, as they call themselves, from desecrating the other houses of worship.
So these are not small issues though. These are very big issues.
They're huge issues, because these are issues that our children are faced with. As you know, these kids, our children are faced with those issues every single day, whether it's in the media, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, whether it's just walking down the street. You know, there's gun crime, there's knife crime. These are real issues that are happening unfolding before our very eyes. So I felt it behooved me to make sure that I touch on these topics at the very least in my own particular style.
Mubarak. I think that's really commendable as well, to be able to try and, you know, tackle these huge issues and put them into a format that is digestible for kids of that age, because obviously they're facing it, but to recognize that the adult sphere recognize it in a different way, because I think in regards to the youth, there's a lot of, you know, blame culture aimed at them, and rather than having the blame culture, we need more of a solution-based culture. And I'm guessing your book is there to kind of enhance the solution-based culture around tackling these issues.
Yeah, because one, tackling these issues, and two, speaking to young people as well is very tempting to patronize. It's very tempting to talk down to people and to sort of speak at them or talk at them. So to try and give a solution, you know, you still have to be very subtle. You still have to be very clever with how you word and how you create the characters and how they find their way through the difficulties. You still have to be very subtle, because you can't preach to these kids anymore. You have to be very subtle, or they feel like they're being patronized. So it's a very delicate balancing act that one is undertaking to try and, yes, we want to show the values of Islam. Yes, we want to show them that there's a way out, but we can't preach to them, and we have to put it in a real world situation where in scenarios that they can imagine that they could probably not too far from where they actually live in terms of their immediate environment. So it's very tricky. So yes, there is a solution at the end. Obviously, I'm not going to give it away because I want you to go and buy the book. But yes, but sorry, say again.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But yes, so they do resolve it in a sense. Obviously, racism is never going to be resolved. Islamophobia is going to be around for a long time. But in terms of the effects on the individual children, hopefully people that can relate to them can see how maybe they could deal with those situations if they ever find themselves in that situation, inshallah.
Yeah. I think it's very important. I mean, I myself as a mother, I have, my oldest is 18, my son is 18, and then I have a daughter who's 15, and my youngest daughter is 9. So having a son who's 18, I fully understand the necessity to be able to understand his world, understand all of their worlds individually at their different ages, and balancing that. It's like balancing 3 different plates at one time in terms of how to communicate with them. And then it's a lot, it really is, you know, a lot of putting yourself back in their shoes at that age, and remembering how difficult it might have been for myself to communicate with my parents and get them to understand the issues happening in my world as it was. And I think this is brilliant, you know, because ultimately we've got social media, which kind of forces our children to grow up more than we want them to. But at the end of the day, 18 is not an adult. Even though you get to 18 and you're supposed to be an adult, you're still a child. So they still have to have access to this kind of media where they can relate and still have that kind of childlike thinking, being immersed in such an adult world where they really they think they understand, but they really don't understand. So I do appreciate you creating these books, as a mother myself, creating these books and creating these platforms for children to have that kind of relationship. So you're not only the author, but you're also the illustrator, right?
For some of the books, for Rahima and our latest book, Rahima and the Robot, yes, I illustrated this particular one myself. This book has been in the works for the last 22 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
22 years, because just after I took Shahada in 92. So yeah, this is about 20 years, 30 years, about 20 years I've been working on this book on and off, tweaking it, changing it, moving it, doing different things, learning how to write a bit more better. Yes, baby, yes, what? Yeah, Nanny's sleeping. Yeah, my granddaughter. Yeah, so it took, sorry?
I'm saying salam alaikum to your granddaughter, bless her.
Come and say, baby. Come and say hello, baby. Quickly, quickly. Say hello.
Hello.
Oh, hi there, salam alaikum.
Your face is getting funny. Okay, you can go now. Bye. You know, she's used to being on my radio show. That's why she thinks we're doing a radio show.
Sometimes they just want to get involved quickly.
Yeah, so this book took 20 years to do, and I've just a couple months ago just finished it, and I'm just about to put it onto Amazon. But this, again, is an attempt at really targeting those kids, but this is a very much a science fiction set 200 years in the future story, dealing with kids, especially little boys that like giant robots. This has got giant robots galore, and difficult situations and family betrayal and politics, greed and corporate greed and things of this nature as well.
Okay, so we're going there again with the topics. Mashallah. I like how you've incorporated these kind of big ideas into these books, because this is very much real world stuff, you know?
Because I think not to address these issues in this day and age would be irresponsible, because as you said, as we all know, it's in your face. As you said, it's exactly, I agree with you 100% regarding social media. Social media has been either the biggest fitna or the biggest blessing, you know, depending on your perspective, because it is such a deep, invasive medium, because it's got lights, it's got bells, it's got action, it's got everything that you want. And if you don't like it, you just swipe and you get something else. You don't like it, you swipe. It's instant gratification, and it can be so addictive. How are you going to speak to kids in book form? Are you going to get a kid to sit down and read a book when they've got their social media platforms, TikTok, if it sticks around long enough, with that competing with books and trying to compete with for the hearts and minds of our children? So it's a massive challenge, and I don't envy anybody who wants to get into this field and have a go, because we need it. We do need authors, we need writers, we need designers, we need the whole gamut of creative individual. But it's not gonna be easy, and man, you know, I'm glad I'm not going to be around for the next 20 years, because it's going to be crazy.
I think this is why I wanted to ask about your creative process, to be honest, which is why I was touching on the graphics, because I think it's important, isn't it? Especially with, you know, the advancement of technology constantly upgrading every minute, and people's attention spans being very, very short. So myself, I'm a graphic designer, so I understand the necessity to kind of get the graphics right. And I wanted to delve into what your creative process is. I mean, you said 22 years it took you to put this book together. What was your creative process? Because you said it changed so many times over the years. So I know that one. I get that part, because myself, I know what it's like to have to think you've done something and then you're like, no, this isn't right. I'm gonna change that. No, I'm gonna change this. And then you've changed it a million times before you finally got the final format. So what is your creative process like?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a creative process, so to speak. I mean, I have let's just say for the Rahima and the Robot, I had an idea that because I like manga, I like anime, I like superhero movies. I'm a Marvel man 100%, so don't get it.
Same.
Oh, yo, you better leave.
I love Marvel.
I'm telling you, you better leave. I'm a Marvel man 100,000,000%. So that is my background. So obviously, if I'm going to do something creative, it's going to have some kind of element like that. It's going to have adventure. It's going to have. I do have a Muslim superhero somewhere, but so I do. It's going to be of that kind of genre. It's going to be of that high octane action, as I said before, with the Adventures of Hakim. So that is what I'm trying to. That is what I do. I sit down and think, what would I like to see? I'd like to see giant robots doing sujood. I'd like to see giant robots defending Islam, because that's where we're going. Everything is going AI. So I'd like to, this is my thinking before AI even came around. Obviously 20 years ago, AI only came out 5 minutes ago. So, but that is my thinking. I want to see all the things that I love, the superheroes, the robots, the jets and the lasers and the Star Treks and the Enterprises, but an Islamic form, because we've got our own story to tell. We've got our own rich history to pull from. So why not we use that and propel ourselves forward? Because Muslims have always been on the cutting edge of design, technology, medicine, pharmacology, the streets lit in Andalusia. We've always been on the cutting edge, but unfortunately through colonialism and other incidences through history, we've fallen way back. But now I believe strongly that the sun is rising in the West, and people like myself and yourself, we are the ones that's going to be ushering this new beginning now. And me, I'm old now. I'm 60 now, so my heyday is gone. So I'm just doing what I can now to leave a legacy behind, to make sure that people have got something. Even if 3 people read it, I'm going to be happy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that I've left something behind. So my process is to, what do I like? How do I incorporate that into Islamic media? How do I make it palatable for young people by introducing these themes, by introducing contemporary themes to do with politics and racism and Islamophobia? And then that's why the book changed, because politics change, people's sensibilities change, people's worldview changes. So I'm trying to keep up to a degree and yet make it universal, with universal themes of loss and love and betrayal, and trying to, a young girl, the lead is a young girl, she's only 14. How does she deal with being thrust into this world where she has to fight with these robots, and her father has used her as a tool to kind of make himself rich and things of this nature? No spoilers. So that's my creative process. How do I appeal to the flavors today? As much as it's changing left, right, and center, it's going to be a different hashtag tomorrow. So how do I try and keep it contemporary and yet universal at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I can see exactly where you kind of get your creative process from, and I think mine is very similar. You know, you just take from life. You take from life and take from what's happening, and you have a vision, and you want to bring that vision to life. And literally, it is putting how you're going to get that across in the way that your audience needs to absorb it, and the way that you want them to absorb the messages that you want them to take from it, the lessons that you want them to take from it. So alhamdulillah, may Allah continue to put barakah in that for you, because I can recognize the work that's gone in. Like I said, I mean, I'm an 80s baby, so I am a fan of, like I said, Marvel. I grew up watching Star Trek from the beginning. My dad was a Trekkie. Star Wars is my thing. I am currently watching The Mandalorian.
Oh, I love Mandalorian. I love Mandalorian.
Awesome. The Mandalorian series. So I am, my son, my kids, we're all into the sci-fi over here. The Marvel series have all been watched. I'm not even gonna, anyway, movies are haram, so astaghfirullah. Let me move on. But yes, I completely relate, and I think it's important to make sure that we relate to our audience in the best ways possible. I wanted to springboard onto kind of the idea of Muslim representation, because recently, you know, obviously with social media, the rise of social media, you know, you've got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything's going on at once, right? YouTube. So you've got a lot of Muslim representation kind of on the increase in every single industry. But I think in the book industry, in the book world, it's been slower. What's your perspective on that? And how do you see that going? And what do you think we could see more of?
I think we could, you know, the kind of the niche that I'm aiming at, the tweens. There is, I do see a few people trying to address that demographic, if you like, the tweens, because there's a plethora, there's a veritable cornucopia of kids books like maybe 8 and under, where they, you know, let's go to auntie's house, and oh, auntie's sick, and then oh, Amina's first Ramadan. There's a ton of those, but I don't see that many books like what I'm trying to do, you know, addressing those teens that are really in danger. 8 and under, you can kind of control your kids at that age, but once they get a certain age, how do you entertain them? How do you relate to them? How do you still try to get them to be practicing Muslims if you're not going to address them in popular media? Because once they get to a certain age, you know what teenagers are like, whoosh, they're off. And they've got every opportunity to do so. If they don't go physically out, they can go out on their phone. They can speak to 1 million people on the phone. They can get gratification left, right, and center. So what are we doing to address and to deal with these topics? It's great that we love Marvel and the Mandalorian and stuff like that, but where are the Muslim versions? We have to begin to create those Muslim versions, because as you said, representations, I mean, I've got something to say about representation. I actually think this new buzzword of representation, I kind of think is a little bit overrated. I think it's a little bit overrated because when I was growing up as a black guy in the UK, I didn't see that much representation, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. You know why? Because it forced me to have to find my identity, and it forced me to have to produce something good. Now, if I just saw myself everywhere, I might just produce mediocre work. Because once you see yourself everywhere, I'm just another person doing it. But if you see you're the only one out there and you consider yourself a pioneer in a vast field that you're not represented, to me, it's not ideal. But what I'm saying, it creates in the person more of a, they have to draw deeper from themselves. They have to be more creative. And the people that have been successful have not necessarily had role models in the media. They've not necessarily had representation. So I think this is a double-edged sword. I think representation is good to have it, but it's not, you don't have to have it. And I personally think, I'm not saying we shouldn't have representation, but I'm saying that if there isn't there, it's not necessarily an impediment or a stumbling block to success. You can still be successful. You don't have to see yourself in the media. You can still be successful because all the people that I've talked about, Zayn Bika, Yusuf Islam, Dawood Wansby Ali, they didn't have representation in the media, but look how successful they are. Why? Because they pushed themselves and they pushed themselves forward, and they were successful regardless of whether there was a representation or not. So I'm kind of in that kind of, and I've already kind of come to this conclusion quite recently, that I think this thing about representation, I think it's overrated.
I think that's an interesting perspective. I agree, but at the same time I don't, because I think that you're right, but I think that's for, I think there's different types of people, isn't there? Yeah. And I think you're very right in saying that, you know, it pushed us, because I'm going to include myself in that, to create what we didn't see, to create, you know, what we wanted to see in society. Now that's because we are that type of person. And I think there's a certain type of mind that looks for what you don't see. But some people need to see a blueprint. They need to have a template. They need to have something to follow. Yes. And it's important that people like us are around to set the pace.
Well, you know what that's called, sister? That's called evolution. With a small e, the fittest of the fittest will survive. As Bob Marley said, the fittest of the fittest survive. If you've got what it takes, you're going to do it. You don't need representation. You don't need resources. As I told you, when I started, I had to record on an early learning cassette, the green one. I had to tape over the lessons on there because you know what? I was going to do what I was going to do. I was going to do what I was going to do. No matter how poor resources I had when I was drawing, I had the poorest pencils. I didn't have good drawing material, but that didn't stop me. Now, the converse side is that if there was multiple representation, that means that I believe, from what I've experienced, there's going to be more mediocre work coming through because people have already done it. So when you go to do it, you're not trying to prove anything. You're not trying to draw from your deepest creative soul to produce something because somebody's already done it. But if no one's done it and you're one of the first, 2 or 3 of the first to do it, you're going to try and be more creative. You're going to dig deeper. You're going to have more knocks. You're going to have more, and those knocks are good for us. Those impediments, those stumbling blocks are good for us. You need to have pressure. You don't want to have it easy. That's the problem with our generation at the moment. It's too easy. It's too easy to start a TikTok. It's too easy to start a YouTube. It's too easy to put your records on those CD baby things. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry can do it. And what happens? A lot of mediocre work comes through. That's what happens. So that's why I'm saying we should have representation. It's going to happen anyway. But I'm saying that the idea of representation, I think, is overrated.
I get it. I do get it. I get it.
Think about it. Think about it.
All right. So far we're having a brilliant conversation, but right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and I'm going to introduce our special guest, who is Ivan Wadeson. He's going to come in and talk to us about MACFEST and Manchester City Literature. So Ivan Wadeson is the Executive Director of Manchester City of Literature. The charity was set up in 2019 to manage the city's UNESCO designation on behalf of Manchester City Council and Manchester Metropolitan. The University of Manchester and the city's writers, publishers, literary literary organizations and festivals. Designated cities are recognized for their commitment to make culture and creativity a driving force for sustainable development and urban regeneration. So prior to this, Ivan has over 25 years experience of working at senior levels in the cultural sector. And this includes extensive periods at the Royal Exchange Theatre, Arts About Manchester, All About Audiences, the Dukes of Lancaster, and Dance Consortia, Northwest. He's lived in Manchester for 24 years, mashallah. Welcome, Ivan.
Thank you very much, Amina. Hello, everybody. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem to everyone who's fasting. I'll just take a few minutes to talk a bit about Manchester City of Literature, to talk about the importance of books. Yeah, so that's what I'll talk about. As Amina said, that Manchester has been a city of literature since 2017, and there's been an organisation helping promoting that since 2019. So UNESCO recognised the many literary strengths in Manchester, its vibrant live literature scene, its bookshops, the city's passion for poetry, its world-class writing schools at the 2 universities and the many specialist writing agencies, its publishers and all the writers who make their home here. Despite these strengths, we also have issues in Manchester and in the rest of the UK that partners are using reading and writing to help address. So one example, research in 2019 showed that 27,000 young people in Manchester don't own a single book. And across the UK, that figure is close to 400,000 people, young people not owning a book. Now, that's significant because the research also showed that children who own books are 6 times more likely to read above the level expected for their age. And they are 3 times more likely to enjoy reading for the rest of their life. Now, as well as that literacy, reading also supports confidence, well-being and empathy. So it's really, really important. And from that just fascinating discussion we've just had there with Amina and Khaleel about representation, I think I'm more with Amina on that. I think there is a real importance for books to represent all parts of society, all ethnicities, all faiths, all stories are important for all people. We are all richer for seeing, reading and sharing those stories. So with that backdrop, Manchester City of Literature, we work with a lot of partners, and one of those is called Read Manchester. It's a partnership between Manchester Libraries and the National Literacy Trust. And since April 2020, they've gifted nearly 98,000 books and magazines to families and schools who might not otherwise have access to owning books. Another way that we're supporting people to access reading and writing is that we run the Festival of Libraries that happens across Greater Manchester. This year's festival will be 7th to 11th of June. And if you come along to those events, mainly in person, a few online events, you'll be able to meet high-profile speakers and writers, attend events and activities for families, and take part in book hunts all across Greater Manchester. So watch out for that programme that will be announced late in April by looking on Manchester City of Literature's social media. So as I've talked about, we here at Manchester City of Literature are great supporters of reading and writing for young people and for families. We're great supporters of MACFEST. I think it's a wonderful organisation that does so much to bring people together. And I am so enjoying this event. There's so much energy, so much excitement, but also we're touching on really crucial topics, contemporary issues, but also that history and innovation within Muslim culture. I'm learning so much and I can't wait to find out and hear more. So I'll hand you back to our chair, Amina. Thank you very much, everyone.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for that, Ivan. And that is really good to hear about what's coming up with the Manchester City of Literature. And for those who are listening in, do make sure you go to the website and check out what programs are coming up, as Ivan said, because you may want to go along and check it out. And I think you should, because definitely there are some there's so much happening, so just get involved, inshallah. But we're going to get back to Khaleel now and continue this conversation. I like what Ivan said, that he said he agreed with me, because also I forgot to say that representation is not just for the people who are doing it, it's not for your particular group, it's for everyone else. It's actually for everyone else who isn't, you know, aware of certain things coming from your culture. So that being said, I want to start talking about your nasheeds, Khaleel. So you have got, you know, a very vast career right here. You know, you've been doing this for a long time, and I think we've got a video that we want to play quickly. So let's go to that second video, which is Adventure of Life.
Welcome to Turkey.
If you ask me to, I'd walk amongst the stars. If you ask me to, I'd lay down my life for you. It's adventure. For I only live to serve Allah. It is adventure.
Time to pray. And now back to it.
As Muslims, we believe in peace and justice. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that if you look for bad, you'll find no end of badness. And if you look for good, then you'll find no end of goodness.
And though I'm afraid, there's something deep inside my heart that fear can't dissuade. There's no hope but with Him. Hope is gone, and the colors have all faded. My heart will go on, 'cause I yearn for the one.
Action.
Welcome to
SubhanAllah. That video just encapsulated so much. I actually have so much questions, but we've got just under 10 minutes left. So I'm going to try and squeeze in a couple of questions that kind of relate to your career now in both the nasheed world and the TV world, because Khaleel, you're doing a lot, bro. You're doing a lot. MashaAllah and Mubarak.
MashaAllah.
So your career as a nasheed artist, I know that you mentioned behind the scenes that you, as a revert beforehand, you were in the music industry. So obviously you left the music industry, you became a nasheed artist, you've become a world-renowned nasheed artist, mashallah. Yeah, we keep that modesty, mashallah, love that, alhamdulillah. But you've done a lot, you've accomplished a lot. Just give us a little feel for how your journey has been as a nasheed artist.
It's been like this and like this. It's been absolutely insane. I always, as I said before, I was singing, but after I left Mountain of Light, there was a brother who wanted to start his own record label, and he said, Khaleel, why don't you sign a 6-record deal? And I was like, 6 records? Are you insane? He goes, okay, let's make it 4. So the minute I signed the contract, about a week later, I was put on a 9-city tour with Mecca to Medina, Sami Yusuf, Dawood Warnsby, Ali. So I was thrown in the deep end from the get-go. I was thrust in there. Next thing I know, I'm on stage solo for the first time, singing songs that I wrote 2 weeks ago that we just recorded on first album. So it's been absolutely insane. People rushing us, trying to get us to sign their hijab, sign their arms, sign plates, sign buckets, sign menus. It was insane. Remember, this is back in 2004, 2005, where the nasheed genre was just barely getting off the ground.
Yeah.
So it was very early days and people were hungry for that sort of thing. So that's how I got into it, and that's the kind of experience I had. We did a few music videos. It was an amazing event. You know, went Germany 3 times, South Africa twice, Malaysia, went to Canada 4 times, Sweden 3 times, toured the whole of France. It was insane. But it did have its negative effects on me. At one point, I developed a kind of phobia for the stage. Where even if I looked at the stage, I used to feel ill. I wanted to cry. So that sudden rush, ultimately, it wasn't good. So I had to really contemplate, why am I doing this? I had to check my intention. Why am I doing this? Is it really, because the intention we're getting wasn't really, I wouldn't say it's haram, but it wasn't halal either. It was a weird nebulous space to be in. And it was a very odd sensation. So I learned a lot from it. I learned about myself. I learned about people. I learned how some people don't handle that fame well, and it does go to their head, and they do get a bit big-headed. So I learned a lot from it, and I've taken a back seat only because I wanted to do other things. I felt I had more to offer: the books, the TV, the radio. I just felt I had more to offer. So I do nasheeds every now and then in my spare time, but I'm really focusing on the books and other things of that nature.
Yeah, mashallah. And I know you said that you want to kind of focus more on the books and stuff. I'm going to quickly ask you one more question about that, the nasheeds, because I think it's very interesting. I know you mentioned Yusuf Islam earlier, and I remember distinctly there was one song that you guys did which was about Syria, and it was very much I think it was actually the first nasheed, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the first nasheed that really addressed the situation that was going on there.
Yeah.
And it was so impactful. I remember watching it myself and being quite brought to tears by the song itself. And you featured on that video. I just want to get an understanding, what kind of was the drive behind doing that? I can guess what it was, but I want you to talk about it.
Well, you know, again, it's really addressing these contemporary issues in a format that is palatable to people, and nasheeds have become part of the wallpaper, so to speak, and it is part of the culture now. So it only made sense that we would appeal to potential donors to help people in that situation. So that's what obviously that's the impetus behind it, that is to raise awareness, to raise funds for the people in that country. We also did a song for Haiti. We did a few different, and there's other people that have done other songs towards these good causes as well. And I think this is where media, nasheeds, rap can be very instrumental in making a real difference in people's lives when it's used correctly and is pushing towards a goal or object which is bigger than the performers themselves. It's not about me, it's not about Omar Isa or Muslim Bilal. It's about those people that need our help now, and we're using our skills and using that vehicle to promote the idea that we need to help these people out there, and because it serves them and it serves us as well. So I think it's again, it's a good marriage between charity and entertainment, inshallah.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that. I think it comes back to what you were saying about constantly checking your intentions, isn't it? As Muslims, we have to do that, because you can get very much caught up with the why you're doing it, and it for being for the wrong reason.
You can easily get lost. I was talking to tell this my brother the other day, that in media, when you're on stage, when you're singing and you're on videos and people are rushing, you're trying to get auto, you realize that there's nothing that you've ever done that's going to prepare you for that kind of attention. It's very weird, and if you don't have some means of having your feet on the ground, you're in big trouble. So yeah, it's a very dangerous situation to be in.
Sorry, I was just reading the chat there quickly. Okay.
Well, I mean, we can extend the program, the event, for another 10 minutes, because really thoroughly enjoying this. We could go on for hours.
Okay,
and there are questions there. We do need to answer those questions. So we'll have another 10-15 minutes, if that's okay.
No problem.
That's brilliant. Okay. All right. So I want to go on to your TV and radio career then. So you are you originated the Iqra TV, Kids TV.
Iqra Kids TV. Yeah.
Which is part of Iqra TV.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from that? I know you said you focused mainly on kids, and you want to focus on that audience. Where did the idea come from for Iqra Kids TV? And can you tell us a bit more about the show and its goals?
The idea for Iqra Kids TV it was born out of another show that they had that I was a part of, called Muslim Kids Show, and that was a project that had similar aims, if you like, but it was more aimed towards facts like sea facts and space facts and animal facts. And when that particular run finished, they called me and they said, Khaleel, we still need to fit this slot, half an hour slot every day, addressing children. What can you offer us? Go home, write a list of things. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote a list of things. I want to do some art. I want to do some history. I want to do some traveling. I want to talk about contemporary issues. And I wrote those down. They said, okay, Khaleel, go for it. They gave me a completely blank check to write, design the logos, design the sets, do the backing music, to do the voiceover. They gave me a completely blank check to do exactly what I wanted, and that is kind of pretty much what I did. The entire thing is my baby, so to speak. And again, it's the same theme. It's about engaging our kids. See, that intention runs through everything that we should be doing. It should be trying to engage our kids in a contemporary setting that deals with issues that are contemporary to them and that matter to them, that is relevant to them. Like we talked about cyberbullying. We talked about, why your mom and dad are amazing, why your brothers and sisters are amazing. We talked about these issues in the show. Of course, there's a light side to it as well. We have Kid Bilal, we have Professor Iqra, we have Nosy Alien. That hopefully balances up. We have the creativity as well. But it's about, that single thread is about engaging our children to think outside of the box, not be sheep, don't be led so easily. You engage your mind, as the Quran says, reflect upon yourself, reflect upon humanity, but to encapsulate those messages in such a package that, inshallah, hopefully they will find attractive and they'll keep coming back for, and they can be enriched by it, inshallah.
Mashallah, yeah. You know what? I'm an 80s baby, right? So I grew up in the time of Rolf's Cartoon Club and, you know, the game shows on every Saturday and these kind of things. So I recognize where it's missing in society now, because we've got so much, you know, there's Netflix and you got Amazon Prime TV, you got all these different apps that just got shows on, and there's not necessarily this element is kind of missing. I miss that, sitting down on a Saturday watching, you know, game shows on TV with the whole family, and getting involved, you know, like you were there. There's so many I could name, but anyway, we won't start. So I love the fact that you kind of encapsulated that with Iqra Kids TV and kind of given them that space, because it's important. You know, the kids, the Khaleel's Make and Do, you've got the Muslim Kids Show. There's so many shows there. These ideas are there. Like you said, you want to impact the audience. I want to know a bit more about your other, like, have you got any other projects that are coming up that we can look forward to?
Yes, we've got for E-Man channel. Just a couple of weeks ago, recorded a game show called Brain Ache. Not that I've got a brain ache, it's that this show is called Brain Ache, where we have a panel of 6 kids, 3 boys and 3 girls, and we just take them through their paces. There's activities they do, like throwing the bean bag. They have to mime words and try and figure out what they're saying. They have to just do your good old-fashioned quiz questions and they have a buzzer that they hit. And we filmed about 5 of those, but about 30 kids, do the math, and that's starting today, actually, 4:15 on E-Man channel. So make sure you don't miss it. Inshallah, it's going to be the first episode. And I bring my own sensibility, my own flavor into the show as well, and try and make it interesting for the kids. But that is something that is happening right now, inshallah, during the blessed month of Ramadan. So that is what we're doing. I'm also working on the new book, The Adventures of Hakim. It was an audio cassette that CD. But we're working on the book version of that right now as well. So there's a few different things happening as well. So again, I'm always trying to be innovative, but I'm always trying to push out the boundaries and push out that envelope of creativity and just trying to be interesting. It's very hard to be interesting in this day and age because we're competing with so many different, as you said, different medias and different outlets vying for people's attention. So it's very difficult, but I accept the challenge. I accept the challenge, and I'm going to try and do my best with whatever Allah has given me, because I didn't decide to have the talents I have. Allah gave it to me. So I owe it to mankind, I owe it to Allah to make sure I use every little bit as much as I can, bearing in mind that I am 60 years of age now. I'm not exactly a young man in his prime, not a spring chicken. So I'm trying to do what I can in order to justify you know, Allah's decision to give me these abilities, so I can at least leave a legacy of something beneficial, inshallah.
Allahumma barik. 60 years young, you know, it's alhamdulillah. You've got the energy by the looks of it.
Walking stick over there,
5-year-old. So it's absolutely fine, and I agree with you completely, 100%. That you know, when we are given the gifts that we're given from Allah, we should utilize them in how we're going to serve mankind, how we're going to, you know, like you said, come back to our intention. Why are we doing it? How do we want to please Allah using our gifts, our talents, and how are we meant to use that to serve mankind? And it's brilliant to see that you're doing yours. So I want to ask you this though.
Okay.
As a Black revert, right? Because this is very, you know, we touched on it earlier about the innovation coming from the reverts. You mentioned it briefly, because I think it's quite poignant to see that a lot of changes that are being implemented now in kind of like the Islamic world with different things coming about are being implemented by Muslim reverts. But how for you has your experience and your culture as a Black Muslim revert impacted the work that you create?
I feel that one thing that is noticeable in the work that I do, I always feel that I need to include other ethnicities. Like, for example, the Muslim All-Stars, you know, you've got one Jamaican guy, you've got one Malaysian guy, you have one Somali lady, you've got one Pakistani guy, and you've got one Yemeni girl. So I've always felt that the need to have to include everybody, because we weren't necessarily included at the beginning. Talking about representation again, we weren't included. So I felt that was a bit of a shame. So now I feel the pressure I have to include those people that didn't include us. Not in a bad way, but in a way that we're setting the precedent for what we should have been following to begin with. We're setting that, we're saying, look, guys, this is what you should have done back in the day. Maybe you didn't because of cultural restrictions or good old-fashioned racism or whatever the case is. But now, look, this is how we're supposed to do it. You're supposed to represent the people in your community who are giving the zakat and they're coming to your masjid and they're praying the tarawih. They should be included in your media. It's not just about speaking one language at the khutbah anymore. It's about including those people that are coming to this deen now. And you can see them coming into the deen. You can see there's African guys, Jamaican guy, Barbadian guy coming in. You can see they're coming in. So you better start accommodating for these people or there's going to be problems down the line. So I'm trying to set that tone now.
Yeah.
To make sure that those come after me see, oh yes, yeah, we have to include other people as well. It's not about one culture, one religion, one culture, one language, or one way of looking at things. The beauty of Islam, as the Quran said, is that we get to know each other and we are this beautiful bouquet of flowers and we all have something to contribute to this massive, beautiful deen. So if the people don't want to include us, I'm going to include myself. I'm going to put myself in there. I don't care if you don't like it, if you don't understand it. When I do nasheed, my nasheeds are they're not sound like Bengali nasheeds. They don't sound like Pakistan. They don't sound like, they sound like Michael Jackson, or they sound a bit like Stevie Wonder, because that's where I'm coming from. And I'm not going to hide away from that. Sure, I might throw in the odd tablas here and there to give it that spice, because people think if it's got tablas or it's got a tarabuka, it must be Islamic. No. You can be as Islamic as you want, and you can have a hip hop drum in on it. You can have a bass guitar that is doing something completely untraditional from the East, but it's traditional from the West, and it still is Islamic. So it's pushing out that door very slowly and surely. Say, look, we have something very valuable to contribute to the whole conversation, and if you leave us out at your very peril. So that is what I'm, as a Black person coming to the deen. That, for me, is what I try to do, to make sure that we are setting that stage. We're setting the president that we should have been following in the first place.
I resonate with that completely, 100%. Because for myself, as my background is in hairdressing before previously being a TV presenter and a podcast host. But I'm currently, as mentioned before, I run my own business, making my own hair care products, which are aimed at Black hair. But I like to make programs and deliver programs or workshops which talk about the Black perspective for Black women, the struggles with hair, but share those stories so that people can, other Muslim women can understand, because we live in a culture where there's a lot of mixed heritage, people have mixed heritage, parentage. So why are we not talking about these issues together and relating together on our different experiences that, have similarities? So this is kind of like that kind of tone that I set in my work. So I get it 100%. I get the need to kind of include everybody, because like you said, Allah said to us, he created us in different languages so that we may know one another. That's, the ayah in the Quran, Allah says something along those lines. Don't quote me because I know I got it wrong, but it's something like that. Allah created us from different nations and tribes so that we may know one another. And that is important for us to really represent that in what we do. So I want to bring it back to Ramadan, because obviously it's the month of Ramadan.
We are running out of time. So
I know we've got 2 minutes.
I know, but we also need to bring 2 questions in as well. So quickly,
you've got questions there.
You've got questions. One saying, who are your role models, Khaleel? And also, does anyone help you with your promotion? So Ramadan, and then the 2 questions.
There you go.
Well, ultimately, any card-carrying Muslim is going to see their role model is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. That's a no-brainer. But if you mean in contemporary setting, somebody that I can relate to now, I would say somebody like, I don't know, Malcolm X, I suppose. Malcolm X has been very influential on me becoming Muslim. So I would say Malcolm X. What the other question was, who helps me with promotion?
Yes, please. And I've got one more I must ask as well.
Yeah, I have a young lady who's very talented. She has an Instagram page called Skyborn Fun Bags or something like that as well. I can't remember right now, I'm on the spot. But she produces all, because I'm a one-man company. So I do even the videos I showed you, I edit the videos and film the videos myself. Wow. So I don't have a lot of time to do the marketing. So this young lady, she does the marketing for me. And she does amazing fun bags with little trinkets in there, little bits and pieces like this, Power Lad, and they have quizzes, and they have, goodness me, I can't even see that. They have quizzes and little puzzles in there as well. So she does a fantastic job.
Excellent. One more question. This is in the chat. It says, my 11-year-old child is a keen artist. What advice can you give for young artists considering a career in this sector? And does technology play an important role in your illustrations?
Yeah, yes, but I would advise them to also get to grips. I mean, an artist can be a many-headed hydra, if you like. I mean, you could be an artist, you could be a graphic design artist, you can be a fashion artist, you can be a traditional artist, you can be a digital artist. They have to find what genre is comfortable for them. Yes, you can go into digital, you can go traditional, you can go, like my daughter, she's an artist, but she's more towards the creative side in terms of creating costumes. So finding your niche, finding what you like to do, and then once you've figured out what you want to do, there's going to be a world of videos you can watch that are going to give you tutorials, that's going to show you how to do certain things, how to draw, how to design, how to create. You might be an artist in the literary form. So you have to find what it is. And then there's so many things that you can, as I said, you can research online. That's the beauty of the internet, that you can look at tutorials on YouTube which will show you how to do anything. You know, I did a tutorial, I looked at a tutorial how to use my air fryer the other day, and I made some stuff for my wife and she loved it. So no matter what you want to do, there's going to be somebody on YouTube that's going to have the answer, that's going to give you some tips and shortcuts, inshallah.
Okay, one last one for me. Another lady, Omara, she says, how can I see Rahim Robot? How many episodes are there already to view?
It's a one book. It's going to be a standalone book. I'm literally, as I said, I'm literally about to, in the next coming days, I'm going to put this onto Amazon, because this is just my own production copy, so I can look through it. But this is going to be on Amazon, inshallah, by the end of the week. So all you need to do is go to Amazon, put in Khaleel Muhammad, you'll come out with Muslim All Stars, you'll come out with Dean Street Kids, also our Muslim Family Colouring Book, which Gina gets us to talk about, and then Rahim and a Robot should be there as well. So Khaleel Muhammad, and then put in Muslim All Stars, and you'll see what the other titles as well, inshallah.
Okay, back to you, Amina, for the Ramadan and the video.
So we're going to wrap up now. I wanted to just ask you one last question, Khaleel, which is really, you know, we saw from your last video, you're obviously, and you mentioned it, you're very well traveled. So your experiences around the world you must have experienced Ramadan in so many different cultures, or am I guessing here?
Yeah.
So how has that been for you? What's that been like?
To me, you know, when I think of Germany, I think of Muslims. When I think of South Africa, I think of Muslims. When I think of Sweden, I think of Muslims, because every time I go there, I perform or I'm during Ramadan, I'm interacting with Muslims. So it's given me the idea that these are Muslim countries, and they're not, because I go to the Muslim communities and I see that they have the same concerns. They do Fatiha, they pray the same, they have the same concerns, they face the same challenges, and it creates that kind of feeling of unity and sameness, that this is actually one ummah. It's not lip service anymore. When you go to these different countries and you see they pray the same way, they do the Fatiha the same way, they have the same concerns, and they have the same kind of pressures against them as well. So it's really created in my kind of my mind, or in my heart, or in my soul, this idea that we are all working towards one massive cause, and all we need to do is pull those resources, and we will make wonders. We just need to sort ourselves out.
Inshallah, yeah, definitely, I agree with you. I think it's happening slowly.
Yes, it is.
And actually, like you said, you know, we have the internet as a tool.
Yeah.
You know? It's a very key tool if we use it in the right ways. And I think right now, especially during Ramadan, it is amazing to see the way people celebrate Ramadan around the world in different ways. It's amazing to see the different, you know, photos, videos, people sharing their iftars, people sharing their experience, mashallah, because it is encouraging, especially for myself as a revert. You know, it's nice to see these things, alhamdulillah. So, you know, I think it's been a really lovely conversation. It's been amazing to kind of get to know all of the different things that you're doing, and for the audience, I'm sure as well, there's been some benefit. So Jazakallah khairan for joining us. I just wanted to let the people know, remember tomorrow Well, MACFEST is going to be here again, so please join them again tomorrow, talking about the Tunisian cultural heritage and the Turkish calligraphy. And I think that's going to be a perfect way for you to spend another day in your Ramadan. So please do chime in. There's going to be lots there to get, you know, take down recipes and, you know, ideas for iftar, inshallah, and all these things. But Jazakallah khairan, MACFEST, for hosting me, and Jazakallah khairan, Khaleel, for being my guest.
Thank you.
Ivan, Jazakallah khairan for joining us as well. Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much, Khaleel and Amina. My goodness, we definitely needed to book 2 hours for you too. It has been an amazing experience, and the word Ivan used was full of energy and fun. Totally agree. Really enjoyable, and a massive thank you, Khaleel, again for sharing your world, your commitment to Islam, your books, and the energy that goes with it. And thank you, Amina. The audience don't know this. You stepped in at the last minute, and you've done a brilliant job in hosting it. And of course, thank you to my team at the back. So for those attendees, thank you so much for coming. And I know it's the busy month of Ramadan for Muslims, but they're still here. And hopefully they'll join us for a feast of Turkish calligraphy all the way from Paris with Nuria. So good afternoon, good evening. I know there's a friend joining us from Jakarta. Bung, good evening for you, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.